The galaxy's capital world, Velian Prime, shined like a jewel in the darkness of space. Towers of crystal reached the clouds, and floating transports moved between them with quiet grace. In the great hall of the Galactic Council, hundreds of alien species had gathered. The air was thick with tension. Word had already spread that the humans had done something no one expected. They had rejected every offer from the Council. Ambassadors whispered in disbelief. For years, the humans had been part of the Council's trade and defense networks. They were new to the stars, young compared to most races. But somehow they had risen fast. Their ships were small but powerful, their engineers clever, their soldiers brave to the point of madness. Most species respected them, but some feared them. At the center of the chamber stood Ambassador Ethan Cole, Earth's representative. He was a tall man with calm eyes and a serious face. He wore the dark blue suit of the United Earth Diplomatic Corps. Around him, voices shouted in different tones and languages, echoing across the massive chamber. Ambassador Laro of the Velkari stood up first. His pale green skin shimmered under the lights as he spoke through the translator sphere floating beside him. "This is unacceptable," he said in his high, sharp voice. "The human government must be reminded of their place. The Council welcomed them, gave them access to our routes, our markets, our laws. And now they walk away?" Ethan didn't answer. He simply stood with his hands behind his back, watching the crowd argue. Then came Ambassador Cthulhu of the Threx species, a massive being covered in scales of deep blue. "Perhaps we should not judge too quickly," Cthulhu rumbled. "The humans are unpredictable, yes, but they are not fools. They must have reason for their refusal." "Their reason," Laro snapped, "is arrogance. They think themselves equal to the founding races." "Perhaps they are," Cthulhu said quietly. "They did turn back the Zarn invasion when none of us could." A wave of silence passed through the chamber. Even Laro's mouth shut. Everyone remembered the Zarn War. The Zarn had been a plague of living machines sweeping through sectors without mercy. The Council had sent fleets to stop them and failed. The humans with fewer ships and older weapons had destroyed the Zarn mother fleet by detonating their own moon base to create a gravity trap. No one else would have thought of such a plan. No one else would have dared. Finally, the Council chair, a towering being made of translucent crystal, raised its hand. The room fell silent. The chair's voice was soft but carried great weight. "Ambassador Cole," it said, "you have heard the concerns of the Council. Will you speak for your people?" Ethan nodded and stepped forward. His boots echoed on the polished floor as he reached the center podium. A beam of white light followed him. He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every ambassador he could. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," he began slowly, his voice calm but firm. "For many years Earth has worked beside you. We have fought your wars, repaired your stations, and shared our discoveries. We believed in the idea of unity, but unity cannot exist without respect." Several ambassadors shifted uncomfortably. Ethan continued, "Every treaty you offered us came with conditions that no other member had to face. You restricted our colonies. You demanded our technology be inspected. You refused us full votes in defense matters, even when our fleets did most of the fighting." He paused and looked at the chair. "We accepted these limits because we hoped things would change. They didn't." The chair's crystalline surface flickered faintly. "Earth seeks equal standing?" Ethan shook his head. "Earth seeks dignity. The Council says we are partners, but it treats us like servants. We will no longer accept that. Humanity is withdrawing from the Council's treaties, effective immediately." Gasps filled the chamber. One delegate dropped his data pad. Others began to shout all at once. "You can't do that," Laro shouted, rising from his seat. "Your world depends on our trade routes." Ethan turned his gaze toward him. "Then we'll make our own. You can't stand alone against the galaxy." Ethan's calm voice cut through the chaos. "We already did. You just don't like remembering it." The chair tried to restore order, but the chamber was now a storm of voices. Dozens of species shouted accusations, some calling the humans dangerous, others calling them reckless. Only Cthulhu remained silent, his golden eyes fixed on Ethan. Ethan waited for the shouting to fade. Then he spoke again, his tone steady and clear. "We have no wish for war. We have no wish for isolation, but we will not kneel for peace. You want cooperation? Show us respect. Until then, humanity stands alone." He turned away from the podium and began walking toward the exit. The hall erupted once more behind him. Outside the great chamber, the corridors of Velian Prime were quiet. Ethan's assistant, a young woman named Claire Moore, hurried to his side. Her voice trembled slightly. "Sir, was that wise? You know what they'll think now." Ethan didn't stop walking. They already thought it. Today they just heard it aloud. "They might retaliate," she said. "Trade bans, sanctions, maybe even blockades." Ethan smiled faintly. "Then they'll learn what happens when they try to starve the species that feeds them." As they reached the shuttle dock, a broadcast echoed through the station speakers, reporters from dozens of worlds already talking about the human breakaway. The council's security officers stood nearby, whispering in their own languages. None dared stop the human ambassador. In orbit, Earth's delegation ship waited, a sleek vessel painted white and gray with blue markings on the hull reading UEN Solstice. Ethan and Claire entered through the docking bay where crew members saluted silently. As the ship detached from the station, Claire looked out the viewport. Velian Prime shimmered below like a world made of glass. "Do you think they'll understand?" she asked softly. Ethan watched the planet shrink behind them. "Not yet," he said. "They'll panic first. They always do when control slips away." Claire frowned. "And then?" "Then," Ethan said, "they'll come begging for negotiations again. And this time, they'll find the door closed." Back in the council chamber, the arguments raged for hours. Some ambassadors demanded sanctions. Others feared open conflict. The chair tried to calm them, but panic spread quickly. Without human trade and engineering, dozens of systems would face shortages within weeks. Ambassador Laro slammed his fist on the table. "We should act before they build more weapons. They're too dangerous to leave unchecked." Ambassador Yara of the Ilith, a tall and slender being with silver eyes, spoke softly from the other side of the room. "You speak of danger, Laro, but I have seen their compassion. My people would have perished from plague had the humans not helped. They could have asked for payment. They asked for none. Because they wanted influence," Laro hissed. "Because they have hearts," Yara replied gently. "You fear them because they do not think like us. But that may be why they survive where others fall." Cthulhu rose again, his deep voice filling the hall. "Do not mistake their kindness for weakness. I fought beside them in the Zarn War. They will talk of peace, but if you strike them, they will not stop until one side is dust." The chair lowered its shimmering head. "Then the galaxy stands at a crossroad," it said slowly. "We must decide whether we will understand the humans or lose them forever." Outside the council's golden city, ships from across the galaxy filled the docks. News channels replayed Ethan's final words again and again. "You can't negotiate respect, you earn it." On every world, people argued about the meaning of those words. Some called the humans dangerous. Others called them brave. Traders worried about collapsing markets. Admirals worried about unbalanced fleets. But somewhere deep inside, even the loudest critics felt a quiet unease. Because for all their power and pride, none of the great species could forget what humans had already done. They had faced extinction not once but many times. They had fought wars that shattered their own planet and still found a way to rebuild. When the Zarn came, they didn't hide behind treaties. They fought until the stars burned red, and now, they were walking away from the galaxy's oldest and strongest council, not out of arrogance, but out of belief in their own worth. Ethan sat alone in his ship's quiet lounge, watching the stars outside the viewport. He thought of Earth, the oceans, the cities, the people who still looked up at the night sky with wonder. Claire entered quietly and handed him a data pad. "Message from home, sir. The president wants to know if the council understood our position." Ethan took the pad and smiled faintly. "They understood," he said. "They just don't believe it yet." As the solstice accelerated toward the blue light of the nearest jump gate, the stars stretched into long lines. Behind them, the council chamber still echoed with confusion and anger. Ahead in the endless dark, Earth waited, quiet, defiant, and free. The panic started only a few hours after the human ship left Velian Prime. The Galactic Council chamber was still in chaos when the first reports came in. Trade ministers shouted about collapsing contracts, defense officials warned of gaps in their fleets, and smaller colonies demanded answers. Humanity had not just walked away. They had taken their workers, their engineers, and their technology with them. On the top floor of the council tower, the chair of the Galactic Council looked over the endless streams of data. Numbers kept flashing red. Several colonies near human space were already sending messages asking Earth for help, not the Council. Others feared shortages of fuel and food. Ambassador Laro was furious. He slammed his four-fingered hand on the table. "They can't do this," he said. "They depend on our networks, our gates, our resources. Without us, they will crumble." Across from him, Ambassador Cthulhu let out a slow, rumbling breath. "You still do not understand them," he said. "They will not crumble. They will adapt. That is what they do." "Adapt?" Laro shouted. "They're just one planet that learned to destroy the Zarn when the entire council could not," Cthulhu replied. "One planet that built ships from scrap and still crossed the stars." The chair raised its glowing hand for silence. "We must not let fear divide us. We must send envoys and try again." But the word fear hung in the air. Everyone in the room knew it was true. The humans had only been part of the galactic community for a few short decades, and yet they had changed everything. Economy, trade, defense. No one wanted to admit how much they depended on them. Meanwhile on Earth, the United Earth government called an emergency session. The great dome of the United Nations shone under bright sunlight. Inside, President Laura Mitchell stood before the gathered leaders. She was calm but firm, her voice carrying through the chamber. "Today," she said, "the Galactic Council has shown us how little they value our effort. They used our people as soldiers and our technology as tools, but never as equals. That ends now. We will no longer serve empires hiding behind the word alliance." The room broke into applause. Many had waited years to hear those words. The world had changed fast since humanity reached the stars. Some believed the Council's promises of unity. Others had warned that Earth was being used. Now everyone could see the truth. Across the world, industries began working day and night. The space yards in orbit around Mars started expanding, building new stations and repair docks. The lunar base increased production of energy cells. Engineers from all continents joined in a new program known as Project Horizon. No one outside Earth knew what it was, but rumors spread quickly. It was said to be a plan to make humanity truly independent. Fleet Admiral Nora Green returned from the Galactic Defense Command. She had served as one of the highest human officers in the Joint Fleet, but now she wore the dark gray uniform of the Earth Defense Force again. Standing before rows of new recruits, she spoke with quiet pride. "The Council believed they could command us," she said. "They forgot we come from a world that taught us to fight for every inch of life. We will defend Earth not just with weapons, but with will." The recruits saluted as one. Ships lifted from the ground, glowing against the red sky of Mars. Back on Velian Prime, the Council tried to send a message to Earth. The signal was formal and polite, filled with diplomatic phrases about understanding and cooperation. It ended with an offer to reopen negotiations. The reply came a day later. It was a short transmission, only one sentence long. "No negotiations until you learn what equality means." The words spread through the galaxy like a storm. Every news channel replayed the message. Some laughed at it, calling humans arrogant. Others looked uneasy. The words sounded simple, but they carried power. In the days that followed, strange things began to happen. Ships from the human colonies that had once worked for the Council started returning to Earth's command. Space stations that used to belong to mixed crews now raised the Earth flag. The Council tried to stop them, but human captains refused to obey. Trade worlds far from Earth felt the shock. Medical supplies, construction tools, and navigation software, all human-made, suddenly stopped arriving. Factories stood still. On several planets, protests broke out, demanding the Council find a solution. Ambassador Laro grew more desperate by the day. He stormed into the chair's private chamber. "You see what they are doing? They are isolating us. They are using trade as a weapon." The chair's crystal surface flickered faintly. "Perhaps we should ask what drove them to such action." Laro pointed at the glowing map showing hundreds of human trade routes fading from the network. "They are manipulating us. They act peaceful, but they plan something big. Look at their shipyards. Half of our spies report they're expanding." Cthulhu entered quietly, his heavy steps echoing. "They are preparing, yes," he said, "but not for war. They are preparing to live without us, and that frightens you more than any fleet." Laro turned sharply. "You defend them too easily." "I understand them," Cthulhu said. "They have lived with danger since birth. When peace breaks, they rebuild. When they lose, they learn. They are not perfect, but they do not fear starting again." The chair sighed, the sound like wind through glass. Send another delegation. If they will not listen, we must at least show that we tried. While the council argued, life on Earth grew more focused. The world was united in a way it hadn't been in centuries. Old nations that once fought each other now shared blueprints and research. The cities glowed brighter each night as new technologies were built to replace what the council once supplied. In the orbit of Jupiter, a massive structure began to take shape, a ring of steel and light stretching across the stars. It was part of Project Horizon, but only a few knew its true purpose. Admiral Green visited the construction site, her shuttle gliding beside the unfinished ring. "We'll show them what independence really means," she said to her chief engineer, a young man named Adam Price. Adam smiled faintly. "Do you think they'll try to stop us?" "Let them try," she answered. "The day they do, they'll learn how much we've been holding back." Back on Velian Prime, the council held another emergency meeting. This time the chamber was filled with fear. The Threx homeworld reported that several of their colonies had joined Earth's trade alliance instead of staying under council law. Smaller species began signing agreements directly with humans. "It's spreading," said one nervous ambassador. "They're building their own network." "They're building a future," Yara of the Illith replied quietly. "A future that we denied them." Laro glared at her. "Do you want to live under human rule?" Yara shook her head. "No, I want to live beside them. They offer respect where you offer control." Laro looked around the room for support, but many ambassadors avoided his eyes. The fear was spreading faster than anger now. That night, a private meeting took place in one of the council's lower halls. Only a few species attended. Laro spoke in a low voice. "If we wait, they will dominate everything. We must act before their fleets grow stronger." A silent agreement passed between them. The first plans for a secret strike began to form. Far from the council, Ethan Cole sat in his home office on Earth watching the stars through the window. Messages from across the planet filled his screen. Leaders, scientists, and military officers all reporting progress. But there was something in Ethan's eyes, a quiet worry. Claire Moore entered the room holding a data pad. "More messages from Velian Prime," she said. "They're desperate. They want to reopen talks." Ethan shook his head slowly. "They don't want peace. They want control again." "What should we do?" "Nothing," he said. "Let them feel the silence. Sometimes silence teaches faster than words." Outside, the night sky shimmered with the faint light of orbital stations. Humanity was preparing, but not just for war. They were preparing to stand alone, to build without the council, to thrive without permission. On the far edge of the galaxy, a convoy of alien ships drifted into a human-controlled sector. They expected to meet weak defenses. Instead, they found powerful satellites waiting, machines that shut down their engines with a pulse of light. No one was harmed, but the message was clear. Human space was off limits now. Reports of the incident reached the council within hours. The panic deepened. The words containment, embargo, and sanctions filled every conversation. Yet behind the anger there was also respect, an unwilling admiration for the species that had refused to bend. By the end of the week, nearly half the outer colonies had requested new agreements with Earth. The humans hadn't fired a shot, yet they were winning. In the quiet of space, Earth's signal towers pulsed with a single repeating message sent across the stars. "We do not serve. We stand." Every ship, every world, every being who heard it felt something new stirring in their hearts. Fear for some, hope for others. But for the first time in galactic history, the council realized it might not be the humans who needed saving. It might be them.